This is Tom Summers of the Milford Museum, and I'd like to welcome you to the third episode of The Other Side of the Tracks. In this series of videos, we focus on African American life in Milford, Delaware in the mid-20th century. The state of Delaware is located on the eastern seaboard of the United States. The town of Milford is located in the southern part of the state on the border of Kent and Sussex County. As part of the nation's 250th commemoration, this episode will examine the colored balcony at Schein's Theater in Milford. Well, Pastor Shockley, thank you for allowing us to come into your church and talk about this location and this landmark building in downtown Milford. Can you tell us a little bit about this building?
Well, I can tell you a little bit that I know. Of course, I was born in 60, blah, blah, blah. But 1922, this property dates back then to when the original movie theater was built. It held 700 people on the main floor, 500 people in the balcony. It was not just a movie theater, it was a place for plays and community events, vaudeville acts. They even had the prettiest woman competition here. I think Battle of the Bands used to be here, and even a KKK meeting, believe it or not. And so it was a hub of downtown. Parents would drop their children off, and unfortunately, September 23rd, 1946, it burned down. And the owners, the Schein family, came down and inspect the damage and decided to rebuild. So June 1948, it reopened with a lot of fanfare here because it was a bigger building, all brick and concrete and steel. And there was a dedication parade. And I believe the movie that they screened that day was the Fuller Brush Man, starring Red Skelton. This is going way, way back here. And it continued to be a hub of the Milford community. In fact, the Milford High School, the baccalaureate ceremonies were held here for the graduating seniors. They continued to show movies for about 24 years. And, with the advancement of color television, it began to fade a little bit by the late 60s, early 70s, I believe. It finally shut down after they tried to revive it with some concerts. And I believe when my father brought me here, there was Kool and the Gang was here, actually. So, and it lay dormant for a while. My father actually was in prison when he had the vision that this could become a church. And 1979, he looked for the owners. He found Jim Hammond's daughter, Donna Smith, worked out a lease agreement, eventually a purchase agreement for just $50,000. And so slowly but surely, he had a barbershop out front. We had a small area in the mezzanine where we had services and Bible studies. And actually there was a little section on the front of the building that was a parsonage. I actually lived here for a number of years. And unfortunately, my father passed away in 1983, but it continued to be a church. And in 2009, we opened up this section here, which is the main floor of the main theater. And it's a sanctuary, but it's still a community place. We have weddings and funerals. We still have plays and concerts, and it's been an amazing transition when you think about the history of how this started.
And it seems like the history is still being told. I had a meeting the other day with somebody here from Milford, and they said that their graduating class, the class of 1968, was actually the last graduating class that held ceremonies in this structure.
Wow.
And the following year is when they started having the graduation ceremonies in the football stadiums that have till today. So there's still a lot of history to be told.
Absolutely.
We appreciate taking the time to tell us a little bit about the theater today.
Hey, my pleasure. Thank you so much, sir.
Thanks.
All right.
We're going to head back out to the lobby. We're here in the lobby of the old Schein's Theater in Milford, and I'd like to point out the electric fixture that you see up there. It once had a sign which lit up, which said colored on it, with a directional pointer which led up to the colored balcony. So you could actually say that segregation was actually built into this structure. To learn a little bit more about segregation in Delaware theaters, I'd like to turn the program over to Michael Nasarevich. Now, Michael is an author. He's written a book about historic theaters in Delaware. He's also writing another book right now about Hollywood and its relationship to Delaware theaters that existed on military installations during World War II. Michael, the program is yours.
Thanks, Tom. I'm Michael Nasarevich. I'm here at the Milford Museum to talk about segregation in Delaware movie theaters. For close to 100 years, nearly 2/3 of Delaware's 155-year movie theater history timeline, the Black community was discriminated against by theaters around the state. Some theaters barred Black patrons entirely. Other theaters that didn't take such an extreme position relegated Black patrons to the balcony or even a portion of the balcony, where seating was often substandard when compared to the rest of the theater. In fact, these relegated spaces were often nothing more than wooden benches. This is interesting in a modern context, as I imagine current moviegoers often romanticize the idea of seeing a classic film in a historic theater sitting in the balcony, but it was not romantic for people of color. Another romanticized way to see films in the past was the drive-in, but even drive-ins weren't exempt from discriminatory practices. At least one Delaware drive-in, and likely others, was documented to have a separate section in the parking lot for people of color, whereas white patrons could park wherever they wanted to. But the impact of discrimination and segregation in Delaware's theaters went beyond Black patrons having entertainment denied or having the experience of entertainment diminished or degraded as a result of relegated seating or substandard seating conditions. Because theaters in Delaware, from the early days of the opera houses of the mid to late 1800s, were critical gathering spots for their communities to participate in events that were not necessarily film or entertainment related. As Reverend Shockley mentioned, the various incarnations of Shines Theater played host to numerous non-film related events, and theaters around the state were the same. If a theater was properly set up, it could host an indoor sporting event. Theaters were also known to host guest speakers of certain consequence, including retail magnate John Wanamaker, Secretary of State William Jennings Bryan, and former presidents William Howard Taft and Warren G. Harding. On a more local level, theaters availed themselves to the community for things like commencement exercises for children of all grades, for free events for children and seniors alike, and for fundraising efforts for organizations such as the Red Cross, the March of Dimes, and bond sales during World War II. During that World War II era, theaters also took part in recruiting efforts for various voluntary organizations. They were also drop points for donations for things like scrap metal, books, vinyl records, and toys for children at Christmas. Discrimination by theaters not only prevented the Black community from participating in these community-related events, it prevented them from hosting similar events of their own. 4 exceptions to this took place in Wilmington. Across time, there were 4 theaters that specifically served the Black community. 3 of those theaters lasted less than 5 years, but the 4th theater, the National Theater on French Street, which would later be known as the Hopkins Theater, stood the test of time. From 1916 to 1958, the National and Hopkins Theater served the Black community. The theater didn't discriminate. White patrons were more than welcome, but it was in place to serve the Black community. No other town in the state, from Claymont to Delmar, can make that claim. The Hopkins Theater, as well as the other 3 smaller theaters in Wilmington, are the only theaters of that type. The scourge of segregation in Delaware theaters began to wane in 1951, when 6 Wilmington theaters proactively changed their policies to allow people of color into their theaters on an equal basis with white patrons. But this cultural correction was slow to migrate south through the state, and as late as the late 1950s, the NAACP boycotting theaters in Kent and Sussex counties for their discriminatory practices. The abandonment of these practices would not be seen more widely spread until the early 1960s. Finally, in December 1963, Governor Carvel signed into law the Public Accommodations Bill, which gave people of color equal access to goods and services, including movie theaters, that white people enjoyed. There were isolated instances after the signing of this law where discriminatory practices were still taking place, but by and large, the signing of that law brought an end to the era of the colored balcony. And now back to you, Tom.
We're located here in the central part of the colored balcony, upstairs at the Old Shines Theater. And just looking around, you can tell the massive size of this balcony. It's probably larger than most movie theaters that you see in Delaware today. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to film up here today, but we're actually going to go downstairs and talk to some people about their memories of this area. Come with me. I'd like to introduce 4 people who actually experienced the era when the colored balcony was actually taking place. These folks are Charles Hammond, David Sauls, Teresa Johnson, and Fred Duffy. Thanks for joining us today. We really do appreciate taking the time to come out and meet with us and talk about some of your memories. Now, it's been a long time. It's been over actually 50 years since we've been here to actually see a movie in this theater. What are your general thoughts when you come into this building about being back in this building?
Things would get ugly, but nothing was reduced. If you had access here, if you want to go to the movie, you have to be there or stay home. So they didn't want to be home, so some of us went around mudding, don't throw no popcorn.
So the ushers would come in and check?
Yeah.
And they would check to the point where they were on hostage.
Yes.
And the flashlights and them moving, putting the people out was kind of constant. And you try to get a seat where you could stay and be away from anything that was going on that was derogatory. And you knew that, just like my father always told me, if you get in trouble, I can't get you out. And I knew he wasn't lying.
So you actually, some folks got actually asked to leave the theater.
Yeah, when I come here, I can remember coming on Saturdays, and it's always good cartoons. Our TV at home was black and white, so I come here, I can see colored cartoons. And we had a nice series before the main feature come on, but the cartoons was my thing. I love to come here for the cartoon. Plus, as Mr. Duffy said, I'd love to sit where if some trouble would happen, people throwing, I wouldn't be part of the flashlight. Wouldn't be on me because I wasn't over in that spot, so it would be on me. Yeah, so it was a haven for Saturday. Come here and see cartoons.
I was probably about 10 or 12 years old when I really started frequenting the theater. So that gave us a place to go on Saturday. The other thing was, it also gave us an opportunity to be with our lady friends back then. And being in the balcony was just a sign of the times. I was not privy to the point about how much segregation was involved at that time. I was just going to the movie year. So I was just following the norm. To come into the theater, to go upstairs, that's what we did back then. No one told me anything different, and I expected to do the same thing for a period of time. But also, it allowed us to also see what the other side of the track was like also. Some of the things that we would not afford the benefit of having the advantage of maybe sitting downstairs. Not that I really wanted to, but, that was the situation.
Well, Wednesdays was the day that you had free movies. And everybody just flocked. I mean, everybody just flocked to the movie. And then you had to go up or stay down. And some would try to sneak in downstairs, but they'd be ushered out quickly. And, you got your food and so forth, and you had the rooms, the restrooms that you went to and so forth. But it was a good time because of free. That was free Wednesday. And if you acted right and did the things that they wanted you to do, you had no problem. But if you didn't, it was easy to single you out and put you out.
Well, I can remember, just coming to the theater with my parents back then. And I guess my first exposure to seeing them come to the theater was a movie called The Ten Commandments. That was a big thing here. And of course, they talked about the intermission times like that. But again, they came to the theater and did what was expected of them. My sister and I, we were just little kids at that time. We came, sat, behaved ourselves, watched the theater movie, and then went on home until the following week. I thought maybe like during the summertime frame, I thought they had special matinees on Saturday.
Did any of you question your parents about why you had to sit in the balcony?
No.
Because they knew.
Yeah.
It was a known thing.
Yeah.
You sit in the balcony, period. And make sure that you don't go downstairs. Make sure it was balcony. And you went up the steps to the balcony. That
Well,
was it.
It would get you would get your popcorn and your candy downstairs before you went upstairs.
Yeah.
And sometimes movie would let know we were coming down, and the other people were coming out from here. And sometimes it'd be little problems.
So everyone was getting out at the same time.
Yes. So yes, sometimes. And it would be little problems. But we would tell them, don't do that. And we would get with some of the rough, don't do that because that's what they're looking for us to do. Then that makes it hard for the rest.
I remember my mother telling me too, say, when you go to the movie, you behave yourself. So that meant don't be thrown out. So, but I always wondered, she never came to the movie with me. She was always working. So when I came to the movie, I made sure that I behaved myself. I didn't throw any popcorn downstairs. No, I wasn't going to do that because I didn't want to be thrown out, Plus, so back then, whatever your parents said, say that you would do it. There was no question that why.
Nope.
You sit upstairs, you sit upstairs. You don't try to sneak downstairs. If some people tried, it didn't work. So that's what we had to do. We did.
Well, I think when we thought that we had the best seats, when you look at the seating arrangement at the lower level, look like the customers or patrons were constantly looking up at the screen. When you were upstairs, looked like we had a distant perspective of a screen shot and everything. So I think we did have the best seats in the house, and many times the white occupants downstairs would come up to I call it the mezzanine level, the middle level, to watch the theater as well. But we could not come down.
I sometimes think about when I go to the movies now, where do I sit? I actually sit in the back because I can see a better view. All right, so I'm saying, wow, I sit in the back in this theater, and now I'm in the modern theater. Where am I sitting? Sitting in the back. Because it's a better view. Instead of looking up, they didn't have a good view. I mean, they thought they had it over, but it wasn't. To us, it was.
It was amazing that we were finally allowed to come down. I was like, and we were fighting for this.
Yes.
And it's kind of like the thing of riding in the back of the bus, because we had so much fun bouncing and so forth in the back of the bus instead of sitting in the front. Oh wow!
Yeah.
I missed that bounce.
Yeah.
The restrooms were segregated because as you went into the balcony, there were restrooms along the staircase. So I don't think that was too much of an issue.
No.
Not
No.
for us anyway.
Yeah.
Because you knew to go to the one that was assigned to you.
Yeah.
And it didn't have to have a sign on it.
No, it
You
didn't.
just knew to go.
That's
So
where
that was
we
your-
go.
Mhm.
They did.
Yeah.
But in 1965, we had your first integrated graduating class here. And for the most part, we were never afforded the opportunity to sit downstairs. But in June of 1965, that's when you saw 7 black students walk across the stage here and receive their diploma with having been graduates of the Norfolk High School. And the whole thing leading up to that, there was no commotion about this. Graduation was just coming about. I don't recall any talk about it or anything like that. I thought it was a proud moment for, particular for the blacks in the community, to be able to come down here and see their loved ones or relatives graduate on that day. I never envisioned that happen, but that was a change of time. You know, you had black projectionists in this theater. I even had the opportunity to go into the projectionist room because my cousin operated the projector.
And I understand I think the last class was 1968 when they actually held graduation services in this theater. And then after that, they went towards they decided to do them at the stadiums.
Okay.
Well, I graduated in 67, and it was just wonderful. I mean, not only did we get to come in here, down here, and then just mingle and so forth, but we mingled outside.
Yes.
And everything was just stopped. And I remember walking across the other side of the street, taking pictures. And I mean, it was just wow. And I mean, my eyes were, whoa, we're doing this
Yes.
here
Yeah,
now?
yeah.
And my wife was in that 68 class that we wanted in that, but it was a real proud moment to be able to come in and come down all the way, come up the steps. Oh, wow. It was exciting, totally exciting.
Any final thoughts of memories of this building that you'd like to share with us before we go?
I guess we came to this movies because we didn't have anywhere else to go. If you went to Harrington, we had to sit up at the balcony. So we might as well come here and go to the movie. And Dover had a movie. At that time, there's a balcony for you up there. So it was the same wherever you went, you know.
You also shared about a friend of yours that looked white coming to the theater, and that caused an issue. Can you share with us that episode?
This young lady, it was their sisters, it was 2 of them. They could pass for white, but they were black. And they would be with us when we come to the movie. And they stopped when we was coming in, and they were coming up the steps with us, and one of the ushermen came and grabbed them. Says, "Oh no, you can't go up there." So they both were up. The oldest sister turned around and looked at him and said, "What do you mean?" He says, "You don't belong with those people." Oh my Lord. And she went down, she cussed him from one side to the other. And said, "I don't want to go down there," and said, "I'm going to sit where I belong, and I am not white."
Well, thank you very much for joining us today. We appreciate you sharing our memories, and we truly think this is something that needs to be told in terms of the history of the colored balcony in this theater as well. So thank you very much. We're now going to head back out to the front of the theater for our last segment of the program. We're here today with Susan Dobson Hare. Now, Susan grew up here in Milford, born and bred in town,
Absolutely.
and she has a unique story to tell of when she was a child here, when she actually came to the theater for a movie. Susan, can you share that story with us, please?
I'll be glad to. I was very fortunate to be raised by civil rights activists, and I had a lot of good experiences with them. I think it was when I was about 8 years old, so that would have been around 1958. Earlier than that, my mom had had our fourth child, Jimmy, and was very, very ill. So we hired a lady to come and help us, whose name was Lillian, who was a lovely black woman who lived in Lincoln. She became a second mother, obviously, and was wonderful to us, and certainly was helpful with my mother, who had become a little unable to do some of what she needed to do. With 4 kids, how can anybody do anything? But still, Lillian was great, and she would sometimes bring, I think it was her niece, whose name was Rosie, we called her, over to visit. We played in the backyard, we played upstairs, we played wherever we could, and one day we decided to come down here to the movies. Now, of course, back then kids walked everywhere, so we walked down to the movies. It was a matinee day when they did them like at noon and 2 and 4. You could stay all day long if you paid your money to get in the first place, and that's what we were doing. I remember this place because we came here to buy tickets, and a lot of kids were buying tickets, and we were talking and laughing and carrying on, and the guy who owned the theater, whose name I don't recall, stopped us and said, "Are you guys together, girls together?" And we said, "Yes." "Are you going to the movies?" "Yeah, we're going to the movies." "Well, you can't sit together." And we didn't. We're 8. Why not? We want to sit together. No, it's not done. You can't sit together. Well, we didn't understand that because it didn't make sense, and we were a little dorked about it. So we said, well, we're not going to the movies then, because we wanted to sit together. So we walked home. When we got home, we were explaining to my mom and Lillian, and we were talking about this made no sense. And Lillian and Mom were trying to explain it to us. Can you imagine 2 ladies trying to explain to 2 kids something so stupid and inexplainable? Why can't we sit together in the movies? And Mom, I remember, said, that's just how it is. And Lillian said, we sit in the balcony. We like it up there. And I said, well, then I'd like to sit in the balcony if it's so cool. I want to sit up there. But we couldn't sit in the balcony. So during this conversation, my father came home, and my father was listening to what was going on, and he piled us in the car, and he brought us back here. We bought our tickets, and he spoke to the guy who owned the theater, and he said, these 2 girls are going to sit together. He didn't ask if they could. He simply said that we were going to sit together. And the guy said, well, then they'll have to sit in the balcony. And my father said, fine. So we went upstairs, and we sat in the balcony, which was really the coolest place to ever watch a movie. We were right front in the first row of the balcony, in the middle. It was great. And we had a good time watching the movie, and then we went home. When I got home from the movies that day, my dad sat Jimmy and me down and talked to us about civil disobedience, which he explained was an important thing in today's world then, and certainly it is now, which was that if there was something the government was doing that was immoral in our view, people needed to rise up and try to make change, that there was a lot of things that were not correct, that Rosie and I couldn't sit together was one of those things. He did say it had to be adults, so we needed to wait our time, but that it was really important to attempt to make changes as we could, because not everything was right.
And how did that affect the rest of your life with that talking to that your father gave you?
It affected a lot of my life in terms of my activism, which I did a lot of during protesting for Vietnam, as well as working very hard on women's rights. And as we all know, we still need to continue doing that. And certainly with race relations have been a big important part of what I've done in my life. It's horrifying that we still need to do it.
Susan, I'd like to say thank you for coming to Milford and telling this story. And I'd like to thank everybody that took part in this film, all the memories, all the information, and the time that they gave for this film to take place. I'd also like to especially thank Pastor Shockley, who opened up his church and told us the history of the theaters which were here at this location. And I'd like to thank you, the viewer, for tuning in, and we'll see you next time on the other side of the tracks.